that's a term, I mean, I haven't heard the word balance used very much in the design course.
It's kind of implicit.
Yeah, okay, so that is,
But according to Greek symmetry, not the distortion that we accept today, which is axial. 50% on one side of a belly button, 50% on the other. Well, if you want to focus on that, can you reduce it into its parts according to the allocation of those parts and the intended interplay? Because what you've done, are you familiar with the work of Paul Klee? Okay. I mean, he did this.
K-L-E.
He did this sort of thing. He had a very wonderful discipline. The compositions came roaring out of the right brain, and he could hold the left brain in check until such time as there was sufficient substance that it could be subjected to refinement. Then he put the right brain on hold and back and forth and back. I think he ended on the funny farm. But his work was very easily identifiable. Does this have anything to do with what you were doing? That's an A, that's an A, and this is less than A, right? Right, to there, to there. Okay. All of these guys at the bottom, all of these lines that engage this guy, which has a slight shift right here, but the shift is a part of the elimination of the thicker bar. All of these run between the extremities, right? And they're variating. Now, this too has infinite variations on it. You do the same thing up here, right? All of these are pure forms from there on up, from here on down. Then the subdivision, so you have the lap, is this kind of stuff. And then do you begin to count? All of this may be totally intuitive. That's a totality. This is a totality. The bottom, the top, the beginning, the end, the base, the capital. When we get into this playing field, then you begin to get the illusion of the suggestion of lapse, because this thing at first can be identified as a continuum, but then we discover breaks, fissures, interruptions. So it goes from something in a complexity that is simple complexity, and I'm not playing semantic game, and simple complexity to the complexity of complexity. Do you know who does this stuff that you will be inclined to look past? If I had, this is subjective, if I had to pick the greatest building of the 20th century, it would be the Barcelona Pavilion, because it has all of this in it. There's not a diagonal in it except for the distribution of foci that cause this kind of optical address. And all of you guys think that Mies is simple, simple, simple. He ain't. And if you look at Tirani, the complexity that you can find in his work is derivative of Mies. Where am I going with it? Because there ain't nothing new, guys.
Have you been in Spain? I mean, they have remodeled that wonderfully. All original was run down, but the government is in Barcelona. Yep, it's very beautiful. Like Mises chair is there, water, and marble, and glass.
Barcelona Pavilion?
No.
Yeah. Even that damn red curtain. Okay, this is your datum, right? You guys were given the datum, correct? You couldn't extend the black base. You couldn't extend the height of the transparency. All of this stuff had to be fitted in. That's the constant. And I would rather suspect that if we took a poll, not one of you would say that you were constricted or confined as to how much complexity you would want to bring in here. Some of the stuff that's been missed is how things relate as a variation to the constant. I think some of you maybe lost a little bit in the juxtapositioning of opacities to the transparencies to the point where you could almost take out the transparency and toss it away. I think I'm giving a summation too. Some of you felt inconvenienced or uncomfortable because there was no, quote, function attached to this. No, everybody could
Yeah,
wing this?
no, I had a hard time with that.
Okay. This is not an absolute, it's a subjective suggestion. Do we have any former bag boys or bag girls here?
Bag girls?
Bag, not bad girls, but bag girls.
Is in baggers at the
Yeah.
supermarket? Okay.
All right,
Who's gonna admit? Okay.
all right.
Even on your first day, I think you would know better than to put a carton of milk, a dozen eggs, a loaf of bread under a 40-pound bag of kitty litter, unless you were after the stuff of which French toast is made. That is a symbol one can offer to you as function. And anybody ought to know how to pack the bag. Now that's not an infallible assumption, but I think it's a good working base for departure. What you're doing here is learning your craft, not just the modeling, learning your craft of how things come together, of something called a grand idea. If you don't like grand idea, say thesis. If you don't like thesis, use assumptions, because they're all pretty much interchangeable.
Theme.
To use theme, that's right, because it's all about variation. But also understand where you extract and acquire the stuff which makes it exciting. A constant is a pretty boring thing, so it's a good device to use for departure. The human eye, we seduce it. What about well, constants and variables? You ought to be talking to yourself about this for the next 4 years. And the last gem I would leave with you would be Lou Kahn's contention that you always needed just a little bit of light to know how dark the room was, which means it keeps you from dealing with absolutes. I think these are... Victor? You must have had a good rapport and a working relationship with these people.
Pretty much.
Because they're damn good exercises. No, they're good projects, good products, based on an exercise which to me is maybe the best academic project I've ever encountered.